Hi, so in this lesson, we're going to work with some chemistry problems and physiology problems, and we're working on practicing our Excel skills. So for this chemistry problem, this is a common one they do in chemistry lab at the beginning of the semester to teach students how you can actually make sure that the instrument you're using is actually measuring the volume that you think it's measuring. So that process of checking that is called calibration. And so the students were asked to use a 50 ml size graduated cylinder, a 20 ml volumetric pipette, and a 25 ml graduated pipette. But for each of these instruments, they were asked to only pull up 20 ml of water. So even though this was 50, they only did 20. And so let's read the instructions here. So to calibrate an instrument that you can measure volumes with, you can use a scale or a balance. Often in chemistry, it's called a balance, and a known density of water. So here is the temperature of the water, and here's the density of the water. So there are big tables in chemistry books where you look up, first you read the temperature in the room or the temperature of the water, actually the temperature of the water, and then you look up in these tables what the density is. And so you can see it's very close to 1. And the units is grams per milliliters because density is mass over volume. So mass is grams, units grams, and volume is milliliters or liters, right? So, so in this case, they're using a scale to get mass, and they're using this density, and then they're going to figure out what the actual volume is. So even though this is the density volume, this is the unknown that we want to actually figure out. Is this instrument measuring the volume that we think it is? So we have to rearrange this formula to here. So volume equals the mass over the density. So when they used the 50 ml graduated cylinder and they measured 20 ml, then they they weighed that water on a scale or a balance. And chemistry balances are very precise, or they have very fine measurements. So you can see you can get 3 digits here. And so they you can see it's not exactly 20, but you remember that's the mass. So we have to use the density to figure out what was the volume. And so they did this 5 times and they weighed the water. And then now it's for us to figure out what the volume is in this column by using this formula. So we're going to take this mass and we're going to divide it with this density. And then we're going to get what the volume was. And so we're going to do the same thing for all 3 here. So with Excel, it's pretty quick. If most of the time it's just the first calculation that can be a little tedious. So in either case, to figure out volume, we're using this. So we're going to take mass divided with density. And so to tell Excel to do a mathematical formula, you want to start with an equal sign. And then I'm going to say, I want to take this mass and I want to divide it with, and I'm going to look over there what the density is. It's 0.998860. And then I'm going to hit enter. All right. So now I can click on the cell and I get this little green square. I can click, hold, and drag it down for the 5 trials, and there it calculated all those volumes. But once again, you can see none of them are exactly 20. They're close. So the next for us is to figure out the mean or the average. And so to do that, we have to sum this up and divide with the number of trials. So here I'm going to do sum. So I'm going to do equal, and I'm going to type sum, and then I'm going to do a parenthesis, and I'm just going to tell it to keep these, and then close the parenthesis and hit enter. All right, so there's the sum. If you ever want to play around with the number of decimals that it's reporting, you can have more. If you see this, a bunch of hashtags, you probably have a number in there. There's nothing wrong. It's just that the cell isn't big enough. So either you can go up here and make the cell bigger and you see the numbers, right? Or you can go back and you can change the number to fewer decimal points. All right. So the other thing that Excel does you can see that because I can make fewer or more. It keeps all the digits in memory for like hundreds of digits. Like it's you don't need to worry about rounding errors because Excel is just going to keep all the exact numbers in the background. It's going to remember it. So in any case, to get mean, I need to divide with the number of trials. So I'm going to do equal. And then I'm going to tell it to take that number divided with 5 trials. And there is my mean. So the mean of all these numbers is about 19.677, blah, 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 blah. All right. So back to standard deviation. So we now have the mean, but we will also report standard deviation. And that's this scary formula here, but we're going to break it down in this table. So the next one here is to take these volumes minus the average. So mean is this X bar. So that's what it says here. Take this value, subtract the average or the mean. So over here, I'm going to say equal, and I'm going to refer to this cell minus the mean cell. And I'm going to hit enter. So now you might be tempted to drag this down, but notice we get weird numbers. That's because if I click on this one, it's referring to C9, which is this line here and this. But if you look down here, it's referring to C17 because we're 1, 2, 3, 4 cells below the C9. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's referring to something down here, and it just doesn't make sense. So the way you make it always refer to a row 9 and column C is that you go, I'm going to delete these because we don't want that. We want to go back here, and if you put a $ in front of the C, it's now telling Excel always refer to column C. And if you put a $ in front of the 9, you're telling it to always refer to row 9. So in other words, it's always going to refer to this cell. So now I'm going to hit enter, and now I can highlight it, click the square, and drag down. And now I get numbers to make sense. And just to check, if I click here, you see it's staying referring to the mean. So that's what we're doing here, right? We're taking these values and we're subtracting the mean. All right, so I'm going to hit enter. All right, so at this point over in this formula, we done this within the parentheses. Next, we need to square that. And so that's over here. So here I want to type equal. And so I'm going to take this value, but it's negative. So I have to remember to put parentheses. So parentheses, and then I'm going to refer to this value. And then I'm going to do a parenthesis, and then I'm going to square it. And so the way you square it in Excel is that you have to look up at the numbers at the top row of your keyboard. And usually over number 6, there's a little caret mark. So hit shift and that caret mark, that now tells it to the power of. And so this is to the power of 2, or we're squaring it. So I'm just going to type a 2, and I'm going to hit enter. And so now, if I look at this, it's referring to D3. So then when I drag down, it's going to be D4 and so forth. And so in this case, I can just grab that little square and drag it down. And oh, it's doing this weird thing. If this happens to you, we just need to get rid of this by clicking on it and doing delete. And then clicking on this and doing delete. It's some kind of formatting thing. Oh, click on it, highlight it like that, delete, click on it. When you see all those little dots around it in the frame, you can do delete, and then one more, delete. All right, so now we got rid of those. But now we have these differences squared. The next thing we want to do is sigma. So it's sum of all those. So sum of all these, that's here. So I'm going to highlight the cell. I'm going to take equal sum and then start of a parenthesis, and I'm going to select this row or column and then hit enter. So there's the sum of these. So I'm done this. Now I need to divide with n minus 1. So n was the number of trials. We have 5, but we're going to subtract 1. So it's going to be 4 here. So in this case here, I'm going to do equal sign. I'm going to take this number and I'm going to divide it with 4. All right. So what we've done now is everything underneath the square root. The last thing is to take the square root, and then we have the standard deviation. And so here I'm going to do equal, and I'm going to start typing square root. So SQ, and see, there it comes. SQRT returns the square root of a number. So I can just quickly do a click. And then it's telling me what number I want to do that from, and it's this number. And I'm going to close the parentheses and hit enter. So this is my standard deviation that goes with this mean. All right, so we're going to repeat the process down here. So we have our masses. We're going to figure out the volume. And so I'm going to go here, equal. So remember, we're doing this formula, mass divided with this density. So this mass divided with 0.998860. Enter. All right. And then at this point, I can just drag it down because it's not going to mess up. It's always dividing with that number. And then for the sum, because we want to figure out the mean, I'm going to type equal sum. And then I'm going to highlight these numbers and close the parentheses and do enter. For the mean, I'm going to do equal. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to divide it with 5 because we had 5 trials over here, right? And then I'm going to hit enter. So there's the mean. You can see it's a little bit closer to 20 than this one was. So next we're going to do we're going to subtract these numbers from the mean. So equal, I'm going to refer to this, minus, remember we have to always refer to this, so we're still in C, but now we're on row 19. So now I'm going to do $C, $19, and then enter. And now I can click and drag it. All right, so it's entering some weird thing. I'm just gonna click on that little, and when I get those 3 dots, I can hit delete, 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 delete. All right, no, we got rid of those. I'm not really sure why that's happening. Over here, we're gonna square these values. Remember, we need to get rid of the negative sign, so you should use parentheses. So we're gonna do equal because we're doing a mathematical operation. Then we're going to use a parenthesis, and we're going to refer to this number. We're going to close the parenthesis, and we're going to do that caret sign to the second power and hit enter. All right, so in this case, we have nothing to worry about referring to the wrong. We can just click and drag. So I'm going to square, click and drag. All right, and it's doing that weird formatting again. So I'm just going to highlight it, hit delete, highlight, delete, highlight, delete. Huh, it didn't do it. Oh, so now I did something bad. I can click here, undo, and then I can go back and hit delete and delete. All right. So at this point, we done all these values. So next is the sum. So the sum of all these values, and this is equal sum. And then we do these and close the parentheses. And then next we're going to divide with n minus 1, which was 4. So I'm going to do equal this number divided with 4. And then here I'm going to do the square root of that number. So equal SQRT, parenthesis, this number, close the parentheses there. So here I need to format. So I'm going to go, because you can click here and you see it's Calibri 14. So I want to make that Calibri 14 there. And we want to make that 14. There, now it's the same formatting. All right, so standard deviation is closer to 20. And if you compare here, this is a much smaller variation than that, right? All right, so last one. Here we are going to do, we're going to use this formula, mass over density. So this is mass, and the density is 0.998860. So I'm going to do equal this number divided with 0.099880, enter. All right, now I'm going to click and drag. All right, I'm going to do the sum of this, equal sum, parenthesis, and I'm going to highlight all these and hit enter. Close the parenthesis and enter. All right, and then the mean is equal this number divided with 5 trials. All right. Oh, so interesting. Here we were below 20, here we were below 20, but pretty close. Here we're above 20. All right, what do you think is going on? Think about this thing. What do you think the students might have done? All right, so now we're going to subtract all these values from the mean. So equal this number minus this number. But we need to put in our dollar signs. So dollar sign and dollar sign, because we don't want to change that. And then hit enter. And now we can grab that little corner and drag. All right, so we're going to have to delete these. Oh. All right, we got rid of that. I have a feeling it's going to happen here too. Okay, so we done that. We now need to square them. So we're going to do an equal sign. We're going to put a parenthesis. Then we're going to take this number, a parenthesis, and we're going to square it. So a caret and a 2. Enter. All right, so we got rid of the negative sign because if you square a negative number, it's going to be a positive number. All right, so in this case, we can always check up here. It's referring to this cell, and we can drag. There's nothing that is going to be inappropriately referred to. So I'm going to grab that little corner and drag it down. And yes, confirmed, we get those weird things. All right. So at this point, we have done the squares. We're going to sum them. So the sigma is sum of all these squares. That's happening here. Equal sum, and then parentheses. And then we're just going to take all these numbers, close the parentheses, and hit enter. All right, so we've done all the sum. We're going to divide with n minus 1. So that's going to be 4. So equal this number divided with 4. Enter. All right, and the last thing is to take the square root. So click on the cell, equal SQRT, square root, parenthesis. And then we're going to take this number, close the parenthesis, and hit enter. And we're going to format it to be calibration. Right there. And we want a 14. There we go. All right, so you can see this standard deviation or mean is 20.61. Standard deviation is 2. So in this case, it only makes sense to say that you're uncertain of this number. So if you were to report this, I would do 20.6 and then plus minus 0.2, because we're uncertain on this digit. All right, up here, if I take this number, it would have been 19 point. So in this case, the uncertainty is not until we're over here. So in this case, we would report 97, and then the standard deviation would be 0.03. So what we're saying is this last digit is the one that's uncertain, and that's the variation. But on this one, it's this, and that has to do with how precise the instrument is. All right, so this was the long way of doing these formulas, but we mostly did it for you guys to be able to practice using some of these Excel formulas. There is a faster way. So if you want to just do the mean right away, you do equal, and then you type average, and then you can click on this. And then it's going to ask you, what is it you want to average? Well, we want to average the volume over here, and then close the parentheses and do that. And look, you get the same number as here. So this is the mean, and that's the mean. So I actually could I could do less digits here. Now it looks exactly the same. That was a lot quicker than what we did over here. Standard deviation, you can do equal, and then start typing standard deviation. So now you see standard deviation, P for population, S for sample. This is a sample. So I'm going to click really quickly on this one. And then the standard deviation is going to be of these numbers. So we have the same as here. So notice I didn't select these. No, we want to have the standard deviation of these numbers. These are the numbers that we're actually dealing with. We've weighed this out, but this is the volume we're interested in, and we're reporting the mean, and we want the standard deviation of these values that gave you the mean. So that's why I referred to these numbers, not these. All right, let's do it for these ones too. So you notice you have a plus minus, right? Because this is plus minus. So in this case, I would go down because you can see the first digit here is the uncertain. So I would go down like that, and I would minimize that to that. That makes sense. Here, I would write equal, average, click. These are the numbers, close the parentheses, hit that. All right, and then here I would write equal standard deviation. Is do ST and it pops up, SDEV sample. And then these are the numbers that I'm calculating the mean for, and that standard deviation are going with these numbers, close the parentheses, hit enter. All right, so now we need to sort out. You can see it's the 3 there, so 2 decimal points in, that's the uncertain. So I'm going to go down to that, and I rounded it to 4. So here I'm going to go down, so we are at that same digit. So 2 decimal points in, and that would be that 8 is uncertain. So it can be 4 less than that 8 or 4 more than that 8. All right, and then for this one, I'm going to do equal. And then I'm going to type average, and I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to select these numbers, close it, hit enter. And then over here, I'm going to do equal ST, and then I get standard deviation sample. I'm going to select these numbers and close it. All right, so in this case, you can see it's the first decimal point that is uncertain. So I'm going to go like this, and then here, like that. All right, so let's see, we have the same numbers, everything. Whoop, I have to go here. Yep, that's the same. This is the same. We just rounded this 9 to a 4 there. So this was, of course, a lot faster. So based on this, you can see that the one that was closest to 20 was definitely the volumetric pipette. It also had the most precise, the least variation in the measurements. So it was the most precise and accurate. So in any case, there you go. That's how you could use those formulas and figure out the volume of any instruments measurements by weighing it on a scale or a balance. So the next problem we're going to work on is physiology and hearing. And this is mostly because I want to teach you how to make a XY scatter plot. So in the last video, you learned how to make a bar graph, but sometimes we want to see if there's a correlation. It could be a negative correlation or a positive correlation. So in this case, often in physiology lab, we will test students' hearing. And so what we do is, as a class, we play tones of certain frequencies. And so we start at low frequencies, like 7,000 hertz. And so kilohertz, kilo means 1,000. So this number here is actually 15,000, 17,000, 18,000. But because I'm reporting in kilohertz, it's implied that you multiply with 1,000. But in any case, we start at a low frequency, like 7,000, and we go all the way up to 20,000. And then students will report the last frequency that they could hear and which frequency that they cannot hear. So in this case, I believe they reported the last frequency they could hear. And they reported their age. And so what we want to do is we want to make a graph. And so on the x-axis, we want people's age. And on the y-axis, we want the hertz. And so this is going to be kilohertz. And so every person will be plotted as a dot, depending on what was the last frequency that they could hear. When did they not hear any more frequencies, higher frequencies? So how do we make a XY scatter plot? Well, first you have to highlight the numbers you want on the x-axis. And so here it's age. And so you should not click on the titles. If you do, you will get a garbage looking graph. So do not click the titles. The first number is the 49 in this case. So you click on that, and here you don't want to grab the corner, because look what happens if I grab the corner. I changed all the numbers to 49. And that will be a very boring graph, and it's not true either. So I need to undo that. You can click on this, or the way you want to do it on the keyboard is Control Z like zebra, or you can go here. So in this case, I want to highlight this. So what I do is I just I click and hold somewhere here in the middle. So I click, hold the mouse and just drag, and I keep dragging, and it will keep scrolling down. You might overshoot, and that's okay. Then you can go back up. But you only want to highlight to the last number, and then you want to let go. All right. And then you don't have to scroll over. You can go over and scroll up, but do not click anywhere, because if you do, look, then you lost your highlighting. So I'm going to highlight. No titles are highlighting, only numbers. So I highlight, I let go. I can move over here. And then before I click, I need to press the Control key on the keyboard and hold it. Don't let go. You have to hold it the whole time. Now you can click and drag all the way up, but not the title. So I have to stop at that 15. And then I let go of both the Control key and the mouse left button at the same time. So what I have told Excel now is that once I go to make the graph, I want these on the x-axis and I want these on the y-axis. So now I'm going to go up here to insert. And I'm going to go over here. Remember last time we did bar graphs, but this time we want an XY scatter plot. And so often students go here. Do not click on this. You will get a graph that's just pure garbage. You have to go down here. As we hover here, you see insert scatter. So XY scatter plot. This is the one you want. And if you click this arrow, you can choose to connect the dots or not. But it's not going to make any sense to connect the dots, because these are individual people that are not related to each other. So don't do this. Just do the dots. So I'm going to click on that. All right, here's my chart. I'm going to grab it. So if you grab here, you might start moving weird things. Always grab in an empty white spot, and you can move the graph wherever you want. And I want to make it bigger. All right. So here you can see this is all the students in the class, and we have frequencies here and age here. But this is not a graph that tells anyone else anything, because we need to have some titles and some a chart title, and also titles on the X and Y axis. So we'll start with this. I double click and it makes a little box. Then I can go over here to the C and kind of highlight it. And so I will title this frequency heard based on age. You might be able to come up with a better title. To add the X and Y axis titles, you have to go to this X. If you're out here, notice the graph is not highlighted. There is no X. So to get that plus sign, I should say plus, Go up here where it's empty white. Don't start clicking here, so you might get bad stuff happening. So safe spot, click up here, click on the plus, and then axis title. So we're gonna check mark that. Look at that. So now you can click on it and then you can highlight the text and type something else. And so this is the age of the subject. Click outside. Then I'm going to go over here. Then I'm going to highlight this. And this is frequency. I can't see the frequency. Frequency. It doesn't look right. I'm going to redo it. I can't type sideways. All right. Frequency. All right. And we have to put the units, and you put the units in parentheses. So I'm going to do parentheses, and this is kilo is a lower capital K, and then hertz is capital H and little z, and then close parentheses. The age of the subject, we should technically also put the units here. I think it's fairly obvious from the numbers, but what if this was not humans? What if it was rats? They don't live 50 years. So we better make sure we put years here so everyone knows. All right, so that's the units. So you put the units in parentheses and you put the property as text. So the other thing is, it's a lot of empty stuff here. And so in this case, I don't know, we could probably clean it up by messing with the axis. And the other thing is you can kind of see there's a trend of like, as people get older, they can hear lower, or they can't hear the higher frequencies. So we want to put in a best fit line or a trend line that shows if it's negative or positive correlation. So it's going to take these values and make a trend line. And the way you do that is click here on the white empty spot. You get your plus, and you're going to add a trend line right there. So you can see this is a negative correlation. So back to our axes, there's so much white spot here. Normally, you always start at 0, but in this case, we could probably clean it up. We don't need to take all this spot. So if you want to mess with the axes, what you want to do is go to this line that is the x-axis and click on it once. And it highlights that box and it pops up this space over here. It says axis options. So you can do click on this and you see like there are all kinds of things. You can do text options. All right. But we don't want to do that. We want to actually mess with the numbers. So we're back here and I'm going to hover here, not on the number, just kind of where it's highlighted in the box. And I'm going to right click my mouse. Oh, I'm going to go on the axis again. I'm going to right click. I have to have my arrow or my right on the axis. I'm going to right click and I get this menu and I'm going to go to format axes. And so here you can tell, where do you want it to start? Right now it's starting at 0, but I kind of feel like maybe 10 is good. So let's try that. 10. And then I can go click over here and it changed it to 10. And maybe I feel like this might be a little tight here. Maybe I want to go all the way up to 65. So I'm going to go back on that line and I'm going to right click my mouse. I'm going to format axes. And I'm going to just change this to 65. All right, so now it's going up there. Okay, there we go. But now we lost in between lines. But so if I don't like it, I can just go undo. All right, so now you have these lines. So I also want to kind of get rid of some of this space here. So in this case, I'm going to click on the y-axis. And in fact, I want to right click. Nope, I don't want to do, and now it has highlighted a plot area. So I'm just going to get out here. And I'm going to click on this, right click, and I'm going to then go down and then I'm going to left click on format axes. And I think I want to start at 10. So I'm gonna do 10 kilohertz. And there we go. So now we're starting at 1010 and we're just kind of zooming in on where it is. And it gets a little bit more spread out or zoomed in. And so at this point, we're kind of done with that. So the last thing I wanted to show you, because often you do your analysis in Excel, but then you need to type up a lab report. And so I have a Word document open here, I'm just calling it generic lab report. But when you want to paste this graph into, I'm going to show you a trick. So if I click on this thing, you see it's highlighted because you can see the little dots and lines. Now it's not highlighted, now it's highlighted. I can just do Control C, that means copy, or I can left or right click and do copy. Now I can open my Word document and let's say I want to stick it right there. So if I now just hit Control V or left click and just do paste, you get this graph, but there's a problem. If I wanted to like, oh, it's too big, I want to make it smaller, and I do like this, it looks pretty good actually. Let's undo. Let's do this. Copy and then Control C and then Control V. Let's see if I can get it messed up. You see there, like it changed everything. It kept the heading and it squished everything together when I made it small. But let's say I wanted to look like this, but not smush it. What do I do? So here's the trick. So I'm gonna just delete this. All right. So I'm gonna go back to my Excel. So I'm highlighting it. I'm gonna do Control C for copy, or you can do right click and do copy. Either way works. But now when you're here in your Excel sheet, you can't just do paste. You want to do right click and then you get options here. And if you do it as a picture, you can always change the size. Look at that. It won't mess with it. But you also can maybe not read it, right? But if you are running into this problem, oh no, it's messing up everything. The formatting is taking me hours. Maybe you should consider just copying it as an image. So I'll undo that. I'll undo it. I'm going to do right click. You see here are some options. And if you hover over them, this last one says picture or an image, right? So if you paste it as an image, now you can highlight it and make it smaller. All right, so that's all I wanted to show you for this Excel lab. I hope it was helpful.